Welcome to Into the Obscure.
Go back. Sorry.
Oh no!
Oh, what is it?
No.
What is going on?
Nothing.
Oh my goodness.
That was
Oh
the
my
highlight
goodness.
of my Tuesday, and now he's gone.
That was it.
Anyway.
Great show, everybody. I'm Jenny, and tonight we have Tressa
Hello.
and Kara.
Hi.
Oh
There
my
we
God.
go. There it is. So tonight I'm really excited, and you guys I know are excited too, because we've got a fantastic guest on, and it's perfect guest for how freaking cold it is outside in the Chicagoland area where we are, where there's snow on the ground, and I'm super unhappy about the entire scenario. So I'm excited to get some stories. This guest, I didn't know who this guest was when I first met him, because I met him in the basement of the Sheboygan Asylum when we were there for a paranormal conference. Super fun conference, by the way. But so I was kind of outside the room where everybody was doing all of their testing. And I'm not a ghost investigator, paranormal investigator by any stretch of the imagination. I don't watch really the shows very often either. So I have no idea what's going on. So everybody's using the tools and whatnot. And I'm kind of outside the room because the vibe just feels better out there. And some guy walks up and starts talking about, like, why aren't you in the room with everybody else? And I said, I don't know, it's a little crowded.
Oh,
He
I
said,
know what
yeah.
you're talking about now. That was in the asylum. That wasn't in the. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, it was in the asylum.
In the asylum.
And, he said, I really like in the vibe of the place and kind of being away from people. And I said, yeah, that's exactly it. And then he said something that completely blew my mind. He said, do you want to hear the only evidence of ghosts that you will ever need to hear? And I said, yes, I do, sir. And he said, there's a word for ghost. You can look it up in the dictionary. It can be translated into other languages. And it took me a second. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Like, why would we have a word for something that is not a thing? So in whatever capacity it is, it's a thing. That was my story about it.
Thank you.
That was my story. And then I learned who he was. And of course, then I got all super geeked out because he was an author. And I've seen his books on the shelves of Barnes & Noble. So I knew about him before I knew about him. Jeff Belanger has a wildly successful podcast, New England Legends, has been a writer and researcher for the entirety of Ghost Adventures, and his new book, The Fright Before Christmas, Surviving Krampus and Other Yuletide Monsters, Witches, and Ghosts, is so, so, so good. Yes, it's very good. The quality, we'll get into the quality later, but please help me welcome Jeff. Yay!
Stop it. What a sweet story. Thanks, Jenny.
Well, no problem. I will remember you forever based on that. And
I don't even remember what I'm saying half the time. So
yeah, well, it's rare for me to remember something that someone tells me. So yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
everything.
good. And then I remember Kara going, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "No."
And then I told
don't.
somebody else. I said, it's really cute. She has no idea who that is. And then they know who you are. And then they laughed at her.
And then everybody
Not knowing
laughed.
who you were. And
That
we all
I'm
laughed
used
at
to.
her.
I would never, it's funny. I'd never assume anyone knows who I am for any reason, ever, anywhere. I mean, because like, whatever, I'm just someone doing this just like everybody else. And yeah, I've been doing it a while, and I guess, been out there and put myself out there, but I don't know. I don't have the answers. So I'm listening as much as talking.
Well, then it's a relief to you to know that I continue to not know actually who you are until I saw the cover art of your books. And then I was like, but I've seen those books and I've looked in those books. So, that's awesome. Then I got super geeked out about it, but I was back home and you were long gone.
Well, thanks.
Anyway.
Thank you. Thanks for being impressed by book covers in a bookstore.
Yeah, no problem.
If you need that, Jenny's your gal.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Speaking of books, how great is your book?
You tell
How
me.
great is this? It's amazing. First
Thank
thing,
you.
Ribbon?
quality.
No, it's not a ribbon. That is Krampus's forked red tongue.
Oh, see, well,
The quality.
when we met, you said you just have to buy it, not actually read it. So I'm
That's
a
true.
couple pages in. I bought it, and then
Yeah.
I just didn't read it until today. At
We're
all.
cool. There's no quiz.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's
God, thank
so.
you.
Yeah.
So
I bought
had
it
to
and
laugh.
read
So
it.
I'm not to the point of Krampus's forked tongue yet. I am just so impressed there's a ribbon. I was a
So
little
Kara,
salty that I had to buy a hardcover.
that's called a bookmark, and I feel a little awkward teaching you how to read a book at this
I
point, but
don't
you
read
know,
as much as Jenny does.
yeah. So the
I don't
bookmark goes on the
really.
page you're on. So like if
Yeah.
you're on
Wait,
page
That's how you do
2,
How do you read
I
the
know,
page
I
then?
did. Yeah,
That
I
doesn't
am
make
Yeah.
only
sense.
yeah.
on 8.
Yeah.
I'm
He
at 8.
he dies at the end, so whatever.
Well,
Stop
But
spoiling
seriously,
things.
for all of the book people out there, it's amazing quality book. The binding is bound, by the way. It's sewn in, so super excited about that. And the page quality and the ink quality, and then the woodblock prints.
Yeah. No,
Are-
they did a great job. They really did, and it
It's
was
just stunning.
it was a long process. The whole thing started about 10 years ago, and I was asked to give a talk on Krampus. I do tons of Halloween stuff, as you may know, lots of ghostly things, so I'm very, very busy in October. And it got to be November into December, and a local history museum was just like, hey, would you ever want to do a talk on Krampus? And I was like, I knew a little bit. I wanted to look into him anyway. I'm like, well, that could be fun to look into for like the Christmas season. And then I started doing the talk on Krampus, and people were like, well, have you heard about these other monsters? And then I would start adding them to the talk. And so year after year after year, I would just kept adding to it and taking notes as people were like, well, in the country my family's from, we have this belief. And it grew. And then when the publisher called and said, hey, we really want to turn this into a book, but we're thinking something like a gift book, like something that would be full color and hardcover. And I was like, yeah, that would be really fun. And so it was a labor of love. But honestly, for me, when I was a kid, Christmas was my drug. And I would be high on that drug from about the time the fork hit the plate after Thanksgiving dessert until like the ball dropped on New Year's, like just buzzing, just flying high. And then as I got older, the window got shorter and shorter. Then till maybe I found like the Christmas spirit within, maybe the week of Christmas if I was lucky. And then as I got to be an adult, like, it was more or less gone. But then I had a kid, and that certainly made things come back. She was, seeing the magic through her eyes was pretty awesome. But now she's 16 and, sort of over it. And so I was sort of desperate to find that high again, and I found it. I found it by going into a really dark place and asking myself about this holiday and saying, why do we do these things? It was, you're in Chicago, it's cold. I live in Massachusetts. It was cold. I was putting up Christmas lights and my fingers were numb and the crafting wire broke on the wreath that hangs on my front door. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why December 25th? Why the wreath? Why the evergreens? Why Santa Claus? Why St. Nicholas? Why December 25th? Why the presents? Why the money? Why? And I'm the kind of person that, once I start to ask those questions, I kind of need to know the answer. And so I started down a really dark, deep rabbit hole and learned that, my goodness, I always thought Halloween was my holiday because it's spooky. Halloween can't hold a candle to Christmas when it comes to fear factor. It's not even close. It's not even a close second. It is a distant second when you're talking about creepy holidays.
Listen, that's great, but can we talk about the structure of the actual book some more? Because
Yes, the
Because it is
80-pound
amazing.
paper glossy.
Hey, listen.
Oh,
Yeah.
When I
Right.
get excited about it, just let me be excited about it.
As an author, I can't tell you how much it warms my heart that you're talking about the binding and not the words.
Well, if I could continue,
Yes.
Tressa,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the fact that you can hear you in the book.
Well,
The
thanks.
way the book is written is from your voice, and that's one of my favorite things about books is when you can hear the author in the words.
Well,
And I think that's phenomenal.
thank you. This is my 16th book. I've been a writer professionally for 25 years, and I still work to kind of get better at it. And I've sort of evolved over time. Like you said, I do podcasts. I work on ghost adventures. I give talks in front of live audiences, and I've sort of accepted that I'm a storyteller, and some stories need to be told in a 3-minute video. that you post on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. And some stories need to be told in front of a live audience, and some stories need to be told in a book. And if you learn to sort of listen to the story, it will tell you where it needs to be.
Oh, that's
Oh,
a really good
That's
insight.
enchanting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I know that you've done a lot of podcasts and talks lately. So, and Krampus always kind of gets the headlines and the front. Yeah, absolutely. For
He's
good
right
reason.
behind me.
And the
For good
sweater
reason.
front.
He's
Yeah.
incredibly intriguing, obviously more and more in popularity as time goes by. Very excited about Krampus, but there's some awesome little nuggets in your book that certainly took me by surprise, and I really like myth and lore and all of those things. So some of the things I had no idea about: the 12 days of Christmas, not actually before Christmas.
Okay,
No.
what? I had no idea. None.
Yeah, December 25th would be day one, and then
Oh.
it continues through Epiphany. Yeah.
Also the wassailing. Let's talk wassailing.
Sure. Here we come, a wassailing. So originally, wassailing was a service. Really, you would groups of pagans would come, and they would offer to sing to your trees in your orchard.
Oh.
And you would pay them with libations and money and food, or any combination thereof. And they would have wassailing bowls, and you would give them sort of this boozy drink. It couldn't be too hard of an alcohol, because you're in for the haul, right? This is a marathon, not a sprint. So we're not talking shots, but it would be like this boozy drink that would just be enough to keep them warm and keep them singing. And they would sing to your trees in the hopes of a good harvest for the following year, a good crop. They could also sing to your animals. And so, going door to door, it would eventually evolve into, almost like a beggar night thing, where you have to realize a lot of people, especially once we get into the Industrial Revolution, they're out of work in the winter. Those old mills were powered by water, and when water freezes, the mills
Oh.
can't operate. And so right about just in time for Christmas, everybody gets laid off, because it's dark, it's the solstice, it's cold. And so sometimes those folks would go door to door to their old bosses, and they would, it's not quite a hostage situation, but it was literally like, you would give them tips, you would give them food, you would give them drinks. And it was a way to get your employees to feel pretty good about you and come back in the spring and, work for you again. It became literally a steam valve for the whole year, which it always was. Like when Christmas was invented, thousands of years ago, many centuries before Jesus, it was a steam valve. It was a steam valve for the whole year. It was a time to take in the harvest, celebrate. And part of that is singing. Part of that is offerings to the world around you, and hoping to get through this most dangerous and deadly and frightening season of winter. And the wassailing was like, I hope our fruit trees, our orchards survive and produce again in the spring. So we sing to them. I hope our animals make it through the winter. We sing to them. And it's not just a song. It's literally like a prayer.
Right.
That's
It
beautiful.
has to be.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then we turned it into caroling, and
And
then that had its own variations of going door to door. But you're still good tidings to you, and bring us some figgy pudding. Like it's all there, right? We're singing to you now, but you owe us. This isn't free. Bring us libations, bring us drinks, bring us food, bring us treats, and then we'll move on.
Hey, hold up real quick. Speaking of singing,
Yes.
do you have anything to say about the song Jingle Bells at all?
All right, this is going to take a few minutes. Are we ready?
Yes, please.
I'm ready.
Ready.
Okay, so Jingle Bells, which is a song we all know. I think it's been called the second most recognizable melody in the United States, probably behind Happy Birthday. Look, we all know it. We all know Jingle Bells. So it's interesting to me because I live in Massachusetts. It was written in Medford, Massachusetts. It was composed by James Pierpont. And the irony of it, two things. Number one, it is not a Christmas song. Christmas is not mentioned a single time in the song Jingle Bells, not a once. It is a song about sleigh rides in Medford. And I'm here to tell you that it is a dirty, dirty, filthy, dirty Naughty, naughty,
Let's
naughty.
get into it.
Highly sexual, X-rated, triple X-rated
Oh
song.
my goodness.
Oh
And-
my.
You're scandalized.
And so if children are listening, it's time for the earmuffs, because I am going to break this song down for you verse by verse. And I apologize for how much you're going to blush. I don't usually work blue, but
Right.
I think you sort of need to be warned. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
So-
This is
I'm
gonna
ready.
make
For that.
this is gonna make my question about the bone horse later on probably seem very inane.
Now everybody's wondering about the bone horse. I
Yeah,
believe
what
that's
about
the
the
name
welcome?
of your sex tape, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we get to that, let's set the mood. I brought the lyrics up in front of me. I did not memorize them, but I will take them verse by verse. You know the words anyway, but I'll get through it. So, dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, straightforward, no problem so far. O'er the hills we go, laughing all the way. Again, fine. Bells on bobtail ring. Now, when you have horses drawing a sleigh, it's quiet because they're in snow. The sleigh runs silently. You would put bells on the horse so it jingles to warn others to look out. Anyway, fair enough. Making spirits bright. This is important. Spirits. Are we talking about your mood, or are we talking about the kind of spirits that you drink? I'm here to tell you, assure you rather, that they mean the drinking kind of spirits. Making spirits bright. I don't know if you've ever been snowmobiling. Very few do it sober.
True.
Not so different back then when it was a one-horse open sleigh. Anyway, don't take my word for it. We'll get to it in the next verse. Oh, what sport to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle bells. So far, not so bad. Not a big deal. Just some drinking and driving.
Sure.
right. Okay, now this is where it's going to get absolutely X-rated, and I apologize, but we got to get through this. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. Miss Fanny Bright.
Scandalous.
She's single. She's single. She's hot, smoking hot, smoke show.
Obviously.
And she's seated by my side. In this time period, men and women who are single were not supposed to be unchaperoned. But in a one-horse open sleigh, there ain't no room for daddy, right? It's just me and Miss Fanny Bright, and we're going off. And did I mention we have drinks?
Oh,
The
yeah, we
spirits
do.
first. So we have drinks, and we're going off where nobody can see us. What do you think is going to happen? Anyway, whatever. I'll prove it to you. Let's keep going.
Okay.
The horse was lean and lank. Fine. Misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifted bank, and here's where we go triple X. And we got upsot. I know. I'm sorry.
What?
I know.
Do
Where
I need to
the
bleep
censors
that?
are going.
Hang
You
on.
do. Okay, so upsot could mean inverted, like flipped over, or
Obviously.
it's also an old time slangy word for being drunk, like
Okay.
you're sloshed or blotto or whatever. So upsot. Now I'm here to tell you that the sleigh, the horse, and everybody in it is not flipped over. I promise you, and I'll prove that to you in a moment, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is me and Miss Fanny Bright who are inverted and upsot.
Hell yeah.
Jingle bells, jingle bells. Now, next verse is where I prove to you what I'm saying is absolutely true. Okay, so a day or two ago, same day, the story I must tell. I went out on the snow, and on my back I fell. I bet.
He fell.
Here we go. A gent was riding by in a one-horse open sleigh. He laughed as there I sprawling lie, but quickly drove away. Your proof. Now, let me ask you something. You're riding along in your one-horse open sleigh, and you come upon a sled that's flipped over. The horse is flipped over. There's two people lying there sprawled on the ground. Do you laugh and keep riding?
I mean,
No.
yeah,
I mean,
Some
No,
people
you
might.
don't.
I
No,
might.
you don't, because you're not monsters. You get out and you ask, do you need help? You need me to help you get your sleigh up? Do you need a doctor? Do you need me to give
That's
you a
a
ride
lot of
into
work.
town and get medical attention? That's what you would do if you came upon an accident scene and no one else is around, because you're decent human beings. Let me ask you another question. You're riding along. You see the one-horse open sleigh. You don't see anybody in it, but it's rocking. It's shaking back and forth just a little bit. And you pull up beside it and you look down inside and you go, whoa! you might laugh and quickly
Yep.
ride away, wouldn't you?
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
happened. Jingle bells, jingle bells. That's what happened. Now, the last verse, this we'll just close this out now. Now the ground is white. Go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight. Sing a sleighing song. This is just advice to other dudes, right?
Wow.
Get a
is.
bobtail bay. 240 as his speed. That's how fast he can run a mile. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Hitch him to an open sleigh and crack. You'll take the lead. Jingle bells.
Yeah, you will.
Jingle bells. Jingle all the way.
Oh
my.
Oh.
Oh
This-
my.
This is a song, always has been a song about a booty call.
What?
That is what it has always been about.
Woo!
And if you've got, if you next time you're in front of some kindergarten group singing
Yeah.
the song,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna
Uh-huh.
race on stage and be like, you can't sing this.
No.
This is too
No.
dirty. Like
Oh, this is my pearls.
Oh,
this is
I-
Meatloaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Oh,
Same song, just a different era.
Only better.
Yeah,
Oh my.
same song. So it is a song about a booty call. Always was, always will be, and it is not a Christmas song.
Delightful.
You will
Yeah.
never hear it the same again the rest of your life.
that's fantastic.
yeah,
I know, right?
Never. I will never hear that
I
the
love
same
this.
way.
Thank you for sharing.
Anytime I can help, I'm here to help. You know.
Thank you. That's great. That's
Yeah.
all right.
So
Cool.
anything
So
else I
we know
can
that
ruin
history.
for you if we're talking Christmas?
Oh yeah, if you have a list, yeah, go for
Oh,
it.
do I?
mean,
I have a whole list right here.
oh, that's a nice book.
Thank
What
you.
is
The
that?
binding is
I
fantastic.
hear it's
Very
You know-
expensive, yeah.
And a ribbon bookmark
Listen.
to boot. So, I
Right.
mean, we could wrap the show up there. No,
I would close it out there. I don't know where we go from
Yeah,
here.
I don't think anybody wants to hear
Thanks for
anything
joining
else
us,
after
everyone.
that.
Yeah, we can't
We
top
discussed
that.
the binding. We discussed jingle bells. That's enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, back to it.
I'm going to ask. So Krampus obviously was first. Krampus was who you started.
Well, sure,
Who
because he was
the
most
first
famous.
one, but who was the first one you added after Krampus?
Belschnickel. So
Why?
Belschnickel's also from Germany and Austria. So Krampus was the most famous because he's got movie deals, right? Like he's come up big. The Christmas devil covered in fur and horns and got the chains wrapped around him, snatches up naughty kids, stuffs them in a bag and brings them off to his lair to beat them or kill them, which is the Krampus story. If that's a little harsh for you and your family, Belschnickel is like Krampus light. And so Belschnickel means Nicholas in furs. And each community would have a Belschnickel. You would dress in like this patchwork of furs. Your face would be covered in soot. You carry a switch of sticks and you'd show up alone, a couple weeks before Christmas. And you like, I might knock on your door. Maybe this year it's my turn to be the Belschnickel. And I would say, hey, do you have any naughty children here? And you might say, well, little Mary's been an angel all year, but little Tommy over there, not so much. And I would take Tommy into the backyard and I would tie him to a tree and I would beat his ass with a switch of sticks. And then he can, of course, get right and still get some presents in time for Christmas.
Oh,
And then-
that's nice.
Okay.
Lovely. And then to make the story even more beautiful, next year it could be your turn to be Belschnickel and you can come to my house and beat my children, which is nice, right? So
That is nice. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
That
Does
is
it have to be
beautiful.
during Christmas? Because I have a lot of free time.
Oh,
well,
we do.
I
Yeah.
mean, the thing about a tradition is like that they're made to be invented and altered. So by all means, I guess if you want to go ahead and carry that on in other parts of the year. So Belschnickels make it a comeback too. He doesn't have a movie deal yet. Sort of. So he showed up in The Office, the Dwight Christmas. That was Dwight Schrute played Belschnickel, covered in furs, holding sticks, which is great. And if you've seen the movie on Netflix, Christmas Chronicles 2 with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, the antagonist, the bad guy in the movie was the remember he wore like a leather jacket, had black hair. He was called Belschnickel. And
Oh.
now the irony of all this is that Krampus, Belschnickel, all these folks, they are not the anti St. Nicholas. They're not the enemy at all. They're cohorts. They work together. They're a team. They're good cop, bad cop. All these monsters. We pushed them aside long ago actually about 100 years ago. We pushed all these monsters aside, but they're coming back, and they're coming back because we're literally summoning them. We need them. We need the consequence
Need
again.
to
We need the darker
balance.
side. Yeah, because
And
we turn this holiday into something that is so saccharine sweet it makes us sick,
yeah.
and that's never what it was about. For many, many, many centuries, it was about darkness. It was about danger, darkness, and redemption. And the only way you can get redeemed is literally, I mean, how can you see the light unless you're in a dark place, right? You got to go
Absolutely.
down into the dark, into the muck, and only then can you be saved.
So I was promised Bone Horse. I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we?
bone horse.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would like to know about the bone horse, please, because that is something that was definitely new to me.
the Mari Lord. So in Wales, in the UK, there was a tradition in the southern part of the country of the Mari Lord, the gray mare that rises from the grave around Christmas time, around midwinter, and would go door to door, trying to get into your home. And there's like a call and response thing that happens. There could be rhyming verse or songs. There could just be riddles. There could be jokes. It could just be, badgering you. And the Matty Lode is trying to get into your house. The Matty Lode is a horse's skull covered with like a sheet. And once they get inside, the Matty Lode and her handler, then you owe them treats and alcohol. And anything that
Sounds
leads
free.
to treats and alcohol for free, in my experience, tends to catch on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're like, wait, if I do this thing, I get free booze and treats. Sign me up.
I'll do
So
this every year.
exactly. So the Matty Lode, it's always a person. You can see their human legs underneath the sheet.
Ah,
But
boo.
Okay.
well, but if you get a little creative with it. Now this practice almost entirely died out. It was sort of big in the mid 1800s, and then almost was completely gone. But then this crazy new invention came along called the internet, and
Oh.
suddenly obscure weird stuff that was in one particular location caught on, and it grew and it grew and it got big in Wales again, but then it spread elsewhere, and now there's Facebook groups and other things like that, because anything that's fun and weird and creepy, it's going to catch on. And so the Matty Lode is just one of many, many monsters that tend to lurk around the solstice and Christmas.
Speaking of one of those monsters, I want to hear about Gryla.
Grilla.
Grilla.
The
Okay.
Grilla, yes. So Grilla's from Iceland, and she's probably the most deadly. Now, with Krampus, Belschnickel, things like that, they're going after naughty kids. And I mean, you can say, like, is Krampus evil? I don't think so. I don't think it's evil to punish the bad, right? That's not someone's got to do that dirty work.
Yeah.
Grilla is different, though. Grilla does not discriminate between good and bad. Grilla comes down on the solstice, and she will hunt any child. She's an ogress, a troll with like 13 tails, and she comes down around the solstice, and any children that are outside are going to get
Oh.
snatched up, dragged back to her mountain lair, cut into pieces, and cooked in her stew and eaten. And the
That's
thing
sweet,
about
yeah.
Iceland is that you have to realize, so around the winter solstice, if you're in Reykjavik, there's only about 4 hours of sunlight at the solstice, and if you go further north, it's even less. And if you go all the way to the tip of Iceland, there you're just about at the Arctic Circle. There's no sun. The sun sets and it stays set. And so when Iceland was first settled by Europeans, gone about 1,000 years ago, or more than 1,000, just a little over 1,000 years ago now, there were no people there. Almost every single country that was settled, they're like, we've discovered a country that was full of people. Not Iceland. Iceland was barren because it was covered by a glacier, much before that. But there were trolls and monsters and imps and fairies and all kinds of things like that. And as the people moved in and they settled on little villages and farms and cities, and as that grew, all those magical creatures got pushed up into the mountains, where they would wait. And they had to wait until the solstice, when it got dark, and everybody had to stay inside to be safe. And then they would come down from the mountains, not just Grilla, but the Yulads and all kinds of other things. And they would come into the towns, and they would sort of like collect their rent. They came to take
Oh.
what was owed to them.
Yes.
And
Do
so,
it.
so
Yes.
think about this. If you live in Iceland where you get, 20 hours a day of darkness and it's cold and you're near the mountains and it's dangerous and your kids wander off into the woods in the dark, whether they die from exposure or die from the grilla, does it matter? The end
They're
result
dead.
is the same,
Hmm.
right? So you tell your children all about these stories. You make the stories as powerful as you can because the gorilla wants you to stay inside where it's safe. This is the time to hibernate, to get indoors, to stay in the unit and family unit and be safe because there's monsters out there waiting to kill you. Whether you think that's a metaphor for the cold and the ice or a literal creature, whatever. I mean, it's safer indoors, and that's the reality.
I love that so many myths, so many stories begin with just keeping people inside of a community and safe. Like
Well,
Yeah.
all the time you hear
these
it.
monsters serve us. They always have.
Yeah.
They've always been here to serve us. We lost the consequence of Christmas. When I was a kid, I was told you got to behave and be good, or you'll get less presents, or you'll get coal and sticks in your stocking. And that's not much of a punishment for being naughty for a year, like
Yeah.
Especially Jeff version of naughty for
that.
you.
Right. I mean, that's a whole other level. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
For sure.
But imagine my parents had said, like, you're going to get less presents, but if you really keep up what you're doing, some hairy creature is with horns and a forked tongue is going to sneak into your bedroom on December 5th, rip
Yeah.
you from your cozy little bed, drag you
Uh-huh.
up into the mountains, and
Oh.
kill you. Well, that's
That's
different. You have my
different.
attention now, don't you?
I have a December 5th question after this, but we do have to go to a little break for a second. But then
All
I have a
right.
question tying into that.
Real quick.
And
And we're back.
hooray.
Welcome.
That was so fast.
I know.
It was so
So-
very quick.
December 5th, December 6th. So December 6th isn't that Saint Nick for the Catholics and probably
Saint
other
Nicholas
people?
Day. No, yeah.
So is
yeah.
there a correlation between December 5th that Krampus is coming and Saint Nicholas?
Yes, because that is the day when Krampus comes around on December 5th. Krampus takes care of all the naughty children. They're all dragged away and killed. So December 6th comes along. St. Nicholas is free to bring presents to all the good girls and boys. That's all that's left. There's nobody
Hey.
bad left. Isn't that
You
great?
have
Put the
to bring
presents
that
in
many
all
presents.
the shoes. You don't have to worry. Those bad kids aren't getting anything.
No concern. So it's literally good cop, bad cop. In old postcards and things like that, they're often depicted coming together on the eve of St. Nicholas, December 5th. So Krampus and St. Nicholas would show up together, come into the home and reward the good and punish the bad. That was a day of reckoning.
That's
Uh,
wild. Just like to grow up, like compared to what Christmas is now, just like everything's fine. You're getting everything no matter what. It's just
Right.
you're all happy and it's all perfect. Versus
We're working on that. We're fixing it.
Yeah,
Right.
versus like December 5th comes around. I don't know if you're seeing the 6th, kiddo.
And that's the thing though, like so Christmas has always been sort of like this packaged nostalgia, right? It's a thing that you're allowed to define year after year, and it's based on a slew of different influences, all of them pagan, but like that go back so far. However, you are allowed to drop what doesn't work and keep what does work every year. So if this year you're like, I'm really over this, like we made grandma's nut roll every year because in memory of grandma, but no one likes it or eats it.
No.
Stop making it. You know what I mean? Like let it go. If you're like, wow, I really would like to make homemade pizza for Christmas dinner, but no one does that. It's got to be a goose or a turkey. Make your damn pizza, right?
That's
It
true.
can be what you want it to
Preach.
be. And if you need these monsters in your life, they're here. They're coming back. They were never totally gone. They were just sort of biding their time. But it starts with movie deals. It starts with Netflix specials. It starts with books. It starts with talking about them. They're here to serve. They're here to help. They're here to come into our lives and remind us, because look, how in the world did Scrooge get redeemed unless he faced his ghosts and faced his demons, right?
Yeah.
Scrooge was in such a dark place, miserly and old and cranky. But then Jacob Marley shows up and says, look, man, I died 7 Christmas Eves ago this very night. And I'm covered in chains that were just as long as yours, but you've worked on yours 7 more years, and it's a ponderous chain. But I've made a deal. I've worked on something for you. You're going to be haunted by 3 more ghosts. And if you get through this, there's a chance to change. And Scrooge went all the way down into the darkest parts of his soul and came out the other side. And that's the promise. But how do you get there if you're not scared? I mean, maybe there's someone in the world that can wake up and go, I'm just going to change things and be better because that's the right thing to do. I've never met such a human being, but maybe one exists. Most of us need to get a fright. Like you don't start eating better till you have that minor heart attack. You don't start cutting the sugar out until you find out you have diabetes and you could lose a foot or something, right? We need something scary to change us. And this holiday has always offered us that. We're soft now. I mean, it's cold out. Let's turn the heat up. And, I don't want to cook. Let's get DoorDash, so, but just go back 100 years and then even further, forget it.
Yeah.
Winter's dangerous. You need enough food to get through the winter. You need enough fuel to burn to keep you warm. You got to hope your roof holds up all that snow. We have to get through this together. And that's why we would give gifts to each other. That's why we would tell stories about scary monsters, because we are looking down the barrel of a gun. Winter is deadly. Where you live, where I live, we live in 3 seasons: spring, summer, and fall. We survive the winter. Now it's like seasonal affective disorder, getting snowed in for a day or so, whatever. But it is dangerous out there, and we need to get through it together, whatever that means now in this modern time. And those monsters are out there, and they're there to help us if we let them in, and they're there to get us into that scary, frightening place so we can find that redemption.
I like that, so many of these are making a comeback, like you said, like the Krampus and the Belsnickel, with movies and even news episode or like news stories on it, where there's a Krampus festival where they make all the masks and everything, which is just incredible, and incredible artwork. What's your next prediction of what's going to make the next like resurgence?
So I think all of these are sort of like starting to pop up. So I mentioned
Right.
Belsnickel was in Christmas Chronicles 2. So was the Yule Cat. And the Yule Cat
I want to
comes
hear
from
about
Iceland.
that one, please.
So the Yule Cat is also from Iceland. Yule Cat shows up on Christmas Day and demands that you have new clothes. You need new
I don't
clothes.
understand this one. What
I
does this
love
have to do
this
with
one.
survival?
This is fantastic.
I love this one.
I want to see your gifts. If you're not wearing your gifts at GTFO, like I don't understand.
This is the the new clothes thing is important on a number of levels. You have to work hard enough that you can earn enough money to buy new clothes and prove to the Yule Cat that you're doing your part for the economy, right? That you're doing your part, you're not lazy. And if you don't have new clothes on Christmas Day, the Yule Cat will kill you and eat you. That is what you have to look forward to if you don't have the nice new sweater and the new pants and the new dresses and all that other stuff.
Weird
Do
feline
pajamas
fashion,
count? Like, oh
please.
my God.
Yeah.
Something.
Do you want to risk it? I mean,
No,
think like pajamas are enough?
I'm gonna
come on, Kara, get with it.
those socks I got gifted, I'm gonna wear too.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
is it a cat? Is it an actual cat?
It's a cat. It's a
That's
giant cat that
fantastic.
comes down and wants to see the new clothes, or you're dead.
I like
That's
this one a lot
fantastic.
because you see it and you go, oh, there's got to be so much more of a backstory on it, but it's like, nope, just have your new clothes on.
Yeah,
I think
not
it's
a lot
just so
to it.
funny that it's a cat. Like, I think that,
Well,
and I can just
so-
kind of picture him like knocking you off a table. Like
It-
that's not a new
it's pro-
sweater.
It's probably it's a derivative of the Yule goat that comes from other Scandinavian countries, but there weren't really goats in Iceland, and so they had the Yule cat. And so the thing about a legend is that it's a living, breathing thing. It can't be argued. Its existence can't be argued. We talked about ghost, right? The fact that there's a word for it. So a legend is a thing that is literally alive. It breathes, it grows, it can marry, it can give birth to children, and it can die. And the only way a legend dies is if we stop talking about it collectively. Any one of us can stop. That's not going to do it. We collectively have to sort of give up on it. And so the more we talk about a legend, the more we give it power. And that's true of everything. And so we are giving power again to these monsters when we give them movie deals and they show up in Netflix, and when we start writing books about them and doing podcasts about them. We are giving them power. We are giving them agency again, and they're coming back, and we're bringing them into our collective consciousness. When I say to you, Santa Claus, you now have a picture in your mind. You know what he looks like. You know where he lives. You know so much about his backstory. And all I said was Santa Claus. What's realer than that?
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating.
There's something in your book that I had never ever heard of, and I'm gonna torture this word.
Good.
Thank you. The Krakenoklos. You're welcome.
Oh my God. It's like I'm in Bulgaria right now.
I know. It rolls off the
Karakonkalis?
tongue. Sure, I don't know.
Yeah. It's the name of my
I
band
read
too.
it. I didn't hear it. Yeah, I
Pretty
know.
good.
Sweet
We're all
band name.
fans. Yeah.
Yeah. The Karakonkalis is from Bulgaria, and it's a subterranean shape-shifting Bigfoot that comes out.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my favorite, you guys. It's my favorite in the whole book just because it's a Bigfoot.
It's a Bigfoot. So comes from shows up around midwinter, comes from below underground, and wants to jump on your back and claw at you and ride you until dawn, when then he has to go underground again. But he's a shapeshifter. We don't really know what his normal state is, because he could look like anyone or anything. And if he catches you, he's going to ask you a riddle, and the answer to the riddle has to have the word black in it, or you get bopped on the head and you're dead. Also, the Karakonkalis has been known to lurk over and hide above your doorway. And so if anybody's sneaking out at night for any sort of nefarious reasons, the Karakonkalis will leap onto the back and ride you till dawn, clawing at you and keeping you in line. So I look at it this way. We all have that relative that shows up, at the holidays, and you're like, Cousin Eddie, and you're just like, oh, I mean, it could be Cousin Eddie outside your house trying to get in, or it could be the Karakonkalis. Don't risk it. Be like, Eddie, you should stay out there, because you're probably Eddie, but you might be the Karakonkalis. If you get in, we're all in mortal danger. So we're just going to go ahead and leave you out there, because we can't be sure.
Where do you think, like, the idea of the shapeshifter sort of, like, what was that a warning about? Because there are so many myths that have to do with a shapeshifter, like
sheep in wolf's clothing, right? I mean, you never know. So the thing about monsters is that they're indisputably real, and everybody knows it. You have access to the news just like I do. There's monsters in the news every single day, and we don't always. Sometimes those monsters look just like us. They look like people, and that's the scariest thing of all, is that we don't know who's a monster. When you walk down the street, you assume they're just people, and they're fine. They're just like you or me, but some of them are not. Some of them are shapeshifters, and they can turn into deadly monsters who are capable of unspeakable acts that get made into podcasts that white women love. I mean, love.
Boom! Get roasted, white ladies.
Yeah,
It's true.
they can't get enough of that true crime, I'll tell you.
That was how I first started listening to podcasts, so you might be right. Yeah.
I mean, the demographics don't lie.
So it's both a warning of and an explanation for.
Sure, of course. And we don't know who the monsters are. And that's always why we tell stories, right? Stories are always have to reflect us and be a metaphor, and we have to find ourselves in them. Otherwise we don't tell them. We don't care. And that's just part of it. And when I say stories and myths and stuff, I mean, these things are born somewhere. Someone has an experience and they talk about it. Someone else finds it believable enough, they repeat it. Someone else has another encounter that reinforces it. And then these things can go on literally for centuries.
There's a woman, she wrote a book called Folklore 101 that I read, and she goes very much into that idea of these myths being created, and she talks about how Slender Man is such an interesting one because we saw the birth and the progression of. Yep. So usually you don't see all of that. It's just a very shortened sort of growth.
Slender Man is an interesting one because, yeah, he was born in what, 2009, 2008, something like that,
Something like that.
Oh, is
on an
that
internet
new?
message forum. And now he's real because he
Mhm.
literally has killed people.
Yeah.
Like that is literal. I mean, there's a girl in Minnesota, I believe,
Yeah.
stabbed another girl
Yeah.
like 14 times. She lived. Multiple suicides where the note said, I'm doing this for Slender Man.
Mhm.
You know, what's realer than that? And the thing about folklore is it works the same today as it's ever worked centuries ago. It's just faster because something weird would happen to me and I lived in a village and I might see you once a week and I might say like, oh, Jenny, I got to tell you this weird thing that happened to me in the woods. I saw this hairy creature and then it was gone. And you go, whoa, that's weird. And then a week later you might tell someone else and it took a while, you know. Now I see this thing and I tweet it or I put it on
Yeah.
Facebook or I put it on Instagram and I say, this crazy thing just happened to me. And you're into that and you go, oh, wow, that's crazy. And you retweet it and you share it. And then someone else goes. And then we all, and by the weekend, there's hundreds of people in those woods looking for this creature.
Yeah.
And so it's the same mechanics. It's just that word of mouth is just so much faster. But it also gives us a chance to try to trace the origins. I think it's so fascinating the way these things have evolved. You know, Belschnickel is Austria and Germany, but France has Père Fouettard, Father Whipper, who's very much a Belschnickel character.
What was the name again?
Father Whipper, which is
Oh.
yeah. This is naughty. This whole show is just
That's
you know.
what
Yeah.
What are we gonna
My
do?
goodness gracious. But yeah, so if a good ideas spread and like a virus, you know, and sometimes for good and sometimes for bad, but it doesn't matter. Uh, those borders aren't that far away in Europe. And then of course they were carried over here, but in America we lost a lot of them. You know, we sort of tamped them all down because Christmas became about consumerism in the 1920s because we were in the Great Depression and we had to
Yeah.
get out of it somehow. And the only way to get out of an economic depression or a recession, ironically, is to spend money. That's the only way to do it. And if you don't have money, how do you spend it? And if you have a little bit of money, your instinct is to save it because the economy's in trouble. So Coca-Cola developed this ad campaign featuring Santa Claus, and they really created the image that is in your head right now. They
Yeah.
created that image of the big heavy set guy with the red suit and the white fur trim and everything else. And it sold Coke. It worked, right? People bought more Coke that year. And then every other business in the world, in the country, was like, wait a minute, Coca-Cola doesn't own Santa Claus, right? And whatever you sell, whether it's pizza or donuts or cars or furniture or whatever, you could get the world's biggest celebrity to endorse your product for free, right? Sign us
on.
up, right?
Let's go.
So suddenly, Santa Claus was hawking everything.
Uh-huh.
We rose out of the Great Depression, and Christmas became about truly consumerism. And it's critical. What's good for the economy is good for the country. And Thanksgiving was moved to the fourth Thursday of November to give more shopping time. So Black Friday could be the day that retailers go into the black. And we spend. And all those monsters were just pushed down and pushed into the far corners where they've just been sort of waiting and hibernating. Never quite gone. And I thought about it. I was like, man, you know, when I grew up, none of this stuff was around. Like, where was Krampus when I was a kid? But then I
Yeah.
thought about it and I was like, Krampus was around when all of us were kids. You remember too. I promise you, you do. Didn't go by the name Krampus. He was green, covered in fur,
Oh.
lived in a mountain above Whoville, and he went by the name of the Grinch. But the Grinch is, come on, that's Krampus,
Yeah.
right? That's Krampus. He just had a different name, but he was never really gone. And now he's coming back, I think, more in his more traditional, true form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's outstanding and phenomenal. What's the next holiday you're going to tackle? Because
Oh,
I
God.
need more. I need
That's a
more
good-
of these. I need more books to complete the collection.
Oh, that's a nice book. Did you
It's a
see the
gorgeous book.
binding on
The
that?
You
binding
know what?
is really
I have
something.
it. The binding
It's
is
the
great.
It's
bookmark
like
ribbon.
sewn in, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So-
also we need to congratulate. It's almost been sold out. You are almost sold out completely of
So-
this book.
So here, I just heard this from the publisher last week. Their warehouse, they're gone. They're out. They have none.
Oh
The
my
initial
That's
print run
insane.
is
It's
complete.
amazing.
But that so like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, they all the various booksellers bought a supply, Whatever you see on the shelf right now, whatever Amazon has, is all there is of the first edition. So
That's
that's it.
awesome.
If you
Get
see
it.
it, grab it, because it is going to be gone.
It's going to be worth hundreds in
Hundreds of
weeks.
pennies.
Yes.
Hundreds and
Yes.
hundreds of pennies.
Yes.
Hundreds of
Don't-
pennies.
Don't sell yourself short. Have you seen the binding?
It is. You know what? I never really looked at it. I've been sitting on this thing for months.
Have
Wow,
you-
that really is nice.
It's
When
a
you
really nice
first
binding.
open it, like I did
There's a
today, it
bookmark in
really
it.
there's an oomph to it. You just
Yeah.
feel it.
There's some
Some weight.
gravitas. What I like about it is the cover. So so by the way, this is like the geekiest thing you can do when you're an author. I had to run out Saturday and get my daughter some new running shoes for the track season. And so next door there was this independent bookstore. It's a really cool bookstore with like coffee shop and like all really great store. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna run in a second because this is what you do. It's vain as all get out, but what are you gonna do? So I go
You
in.
have to.
And I waltz in, and they have this this Christmas display of all these books, and it's like Sweet and Loving Happy Christmas, Santa Miracle Christmas, Jesus Loves You Christmas, and like Cookie Christmas, and all this other stuff. And then there's my book right there among all of them, with Krampus holding a child who's screaming in pain. And I looked at it, and I was just like, oh, there it is in the wild, you know. And I was looking at it, I'm like, this is awesome. And I was thinking, I was like, this book sticks out. And here's my advice, and it's shameless because I know I'm the one that literally financially benefits from this, but leave it on your coffee table all season long. If someone comes into your home and they're horribly offended, those aren't your people.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like maybe use it to
Exactly.
get rid of like those relatives that just really annoy you, right? Or if they're like, what is this? This is amazing. Those are your people.
Hold it
So-
close.
I'm just thinking, keep it close. So, so then the final part of that story is I went up to the customer service desk and I said, hey, you've got my book. You want me to sign it so you could put like an autograph sticker on it? Like, that'd be great. And they just hand me a pen and I signed it. And I'm just like, and I've done this before, but I'm like, I love that you completely trust me that this is my book.
Mhm.
And I'd now like to sign Harry Potter, if that's okay. And they're like, I don't think you're J.K. Rowling, but okay, whatever, sign it. But anyway, so yeah, so that's
Way better.
a geeky moment when you get to go to a bookstore and be like, there's my book.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
It is, and it's nice for quite honestly, it's nice for the booksellers too. I worked in a bookstore for eons, and it's nice when the authors come in and they see their book and they're very excited about it, you know, and
Yeah,
then they
but
sign it and you're excited too.
It's I mean, it's a child, right? I mean, like, you work so hard in these things.
Yeah.
And I've done this. I mean, it was my 16th book, and it's a ton of work. It's a huge investment. And I look at it now, and it doesn't really pay well. I mean, if you get a hit, you're very lucky. But for me, writing a book is literally an exorcism. I get an idea and then I just kind of like kick it around and I'm like, oh, okay, like, what do I do with that? And if it doesn't leave me alone, I know I have to deal with it or else, because it consumes me. And when I'm writing a book, I'm not fun to be around. It's not pleasant because you think about it all the time. Like, I could be talking to you at dinner and I'm still thinking about the book, right? I'm like, oh, I got to move this here. I got to research that. I got to find an interview for this. Like, it's all consuming because that's what it takes. I don't know another way. I don't know how you can work on these things in piecemeal. Like, you literally have to go at them all at once until they're done. And then when they're done, you're just like, you're free of it, and then you throw the little bird in the air and you hope it flies.
It's interesting for me to hear that personally. Anytime I'm starting to write like little bits and pieces here and there, and honestly, when someone comes up and talks to me and I'm in the middle of writing a sentence and you're piecing the words together and they start talking, I want to hit them.
Well, maybe that's not the best
Straight
place to
up.
write.
Just smack. Just smack.
I mean,
She
you
might
like
want to hit them
people
anyway. I mean, it might
regardless.
not
I
be a
do.
story
That's
about
a valid
writing.
point.
It just might be a story about.
I don't actually know how to
violence.
write at all. I just like hitting
Yes.
people.
It's just violence and chaos is the
Fair.
part of the story.
Totally fair. Did any of you grow up with any like weird holiday traditions?
Mm,
Well, this was fun. Glad I asked.
Yeah,
That's why you're
glad
here,
we.
so we don't have to talk.
we
about
No,
it.
went with
I did the Catholic school thing, so you just went through all the steps and show up to all the Christmas pageants and
I have
So,
a
I mean, I
Catholic.
guess you could say that's weird, but
So when I was growing up, I was raised Catholic as well, and so Christianity's been at war with Christmas for the longest time. Only in very, very recent times have they sort of like not only embraced it but conquered it. But uh, so when I was a kid, I remember we were in the church hall. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and Santa Claus walked in with candy canes and wrapped presents for each of the kids. The wrapped presents were all plastic rosary beads, and
this feels
Yay!
right. Yes.
Kids love
I feel
that.
comfortable with this.
but Santa walked in, and every kid was just like, "Oh, Santa's here!" I mean, lost our minds. And Father Lawler, who was a badass, right? Like he was standing there, arms crossed, shooting death lasers out of his eyes at Santa Claus. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with you, Father Lawler? Like, that's the greatest guy on earth. That's Santa Claus. Like, he's amazing. He's the most amazing guy ever. He comes down the chimney, he flies through the air with reindeer. What do you do, Father Lawler? You know?
Right?
And he's like, I'll show you. Get it? Because anyway, so
Okay.
but he was so angry because he knew like this is not what the holiday's about. But the funny thing is that Christianity is not defined by the Christmas holiday whatsoever.
It's
Um,
Easter.
it's Easter. Easter's
hmm
the whole thing that Christianity hinges upon is Easter. Jesus was born. Everyone's born, right?
Yeah.
But death and resurrection, that's not something everybody does. And so Christianity is defined by that. It was never a Christian holiday. It was always about the solstice. It was about the winter solstice, the longest night, the shortest day, but also the return of the sun. You know, each day thereafter, there's going to be a little more sunlight, a little more hope that we're going to make it to the spring and then on to the summer where we can really live and play and farm and work and do all the other things that we do.
That's
I
why winter
really love all
solstice
this
is my
talk.
favorite.
Yeah, I
And
really love
yeah,
the talk about solstice because it's my
Mhm.
birthday and I appreciate you highlighting it
Nice.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
So the thing all over the world, there's 4 major holidays. And those holidays are winter, spring, summer, and fall. The equinoxes, the solstices. And then the half holidays are halfway in between each. So like halfway between the fall equinox and the winter solstice is Samhain, is Halloween. It's the sunset of the year. That's the sunset. The winter solstice is midnight, right? That's if you're looking at the year as a clock, that's midnight. And that's also a time of death, but it's also a time of renewal, right? Things end, things begin.
the hope starts
And
again.
that's what this holiday is about. It's about renewal. It's about getting through it. And so happy almost birthday.
Yeah.
You're
I
welcome.
did think of something that my family used to do. And let me know if you've heard of this one before. We used to leave things out for the animals. My
Yeah.
grandparents started it, and we would take out like corn for the deer,
Mhm.
salt licks, and then we would leave. You know, my mom did it as well, but a little bit different in the suburban area. It was a lot of cat food and carrots and things. But
Yeah, of course. So we've always left out food offerings for the magic folk, the fae folk, the spirits of the dead. That's not unusual. Lots of cultures do that, and in some cultures, it's very specific recipes. You know, like the Tomten
Yeah.
of Sweden needs raisingrot, this sticky sweet rice pudding that needs to be left out on Christmas Eve, and we've left out cookies and milk for Santa, and of course we do, because I think we have an understanding that sometimes there's something else there that we don't always see. And even though the logical part of our brain says that's absolutely silly and ludicrous, there's some primal part in us that goes, it is silly. And just in case, I'm going to leave some carrots out for the deer. And
Just in case.
just in
Yeah.
case, I'm going to hedge my bet here a little bit.
Mhm.
And I'm going to choose to believe in something that rings true on a deep primal spiritual level, even if not on a logical or intellectual level, because we are also animals. You know, we think we're so evolved and top of the food chain, but at the end of the day, we walk among the animals like every other creature on Earth, and that helps us sort of connect a little bit.
I love that. And I hadn't thought about that before, but it makes absolute sense. It's just something we've always done. And I never thought, with all my love of myth, I never thought to actually look into it until right now.
Here we are.
This will be my next story about you.
Well, glad to help.
Both beautiful.
Glad we
Yeah.
met in the basement of a lunatic asylum, and
And now we're talking
too.
the magic of Christmas.
that's right.
Ah. You guys,
On
we got
that
to wrap
note.
up. Thank you, Kara.
Boo,
Fantastic
Tressa.
show.
Hey, don't shut up. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on selling out your book, which I'm sure will happen any second now.
Thank you.
Everybody else, we'll see you next week. Rate, review, subscribe, whatever, and we'll see you then. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.